evening, everyone. In the absence of Mayor Mulvaney Smith and Gail Shod, I'm going to, if I'm around, I'm going to call this meeting of the Board of Finance to order on Monday, July 14th, 2025 at 5:02 p.m. And the first action item needs to be having the members who are in attendance nominate one of yourselves to chair the meeting. Can I have a nomination, please?
I nominate Councillor Travers.
And I'm just going to go straight to a vote. All in favor of Councillor Travers chairing the meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously. So I will turn it over to you, Councillor Travers.
Thank you, Attorney Brown. So the first item on the Board of Finance meeting agenda is our agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So move.
Thank you, Councillor Carpenter. Is there a second? Second by Councillor Hughes. We'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Second item on our agenda is public forum. We will open public forum at 5:03 p.m. I will turn first to whether or not there's anyone here in the Busher conference room who would like to participate in person. All right. I will turn online then to at least the aforementioned Sharon Busher. So Sharon, you should be able to she promoted to be able to.
Yeah, it's just
okay.
like the.
And if there's anyone else online that wishes to participate in public forum, please use the raise hand function on Zoom. And then Sharon, if you could just wait a moment. All right, you should be able to now go ahead and unmute yourself. Thank you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because you made me a panelist, which is not how it usually works. But anyways, thank you. I got confused. Thank you so much. I have two comments. One has to do with the item that talks about public improvement bonds resolution. And I just wanted to be clear that I appreciated the memo from the assistant city attorney. This was always a separate resolution, and I had talked to the administration before you adopted the budget saying that I thought a resolution was missing, which was this one. And I was told that in the past, and I can't speak to beyond the FY 1920 budget because that was the last budget I was actually involved with, and I had the binder and I had the resolutions. And so all I can tell you is that this resolution always was coupled with your other budget resolutions. And so I'm pleased to see that the communication recommends it be a standalone resolution. But as I said, it always was. For the 32 years I was on the city council, it was always a separate resolution. And I would hope that it would go back to being part of the budget process that you adopt and consider in June, because those dollar amounts that are in there from schools, BED, and the city have shifted and increased slightly over time. And so I think it is budgetary and should be taken up at that time in case some adjustment needs to be made. So that's my first comment. The second comment, and I'm sorry to be kind of negative, but I'm just telling you how I see it. It's kind of troubling. It's wonderful and yet troubling. It's wonderful that the library has found a way to address their shortfall of around $600,000 by not just having to take a loan from the Friends of Library, because they had some library impact fees. And so that was wonderful. And yet it's troubling because the action that the city has taken is to eliminate the accrual of library impact fees. And so I feel that this is a telling tale. And I'm hoping that people are paying attention and trying to figure out, after this year, what to do. Because I do believe as we grow as a city, there will be more stress and need for access to the library, potentially more of a van or even a satellite like you have in the new North End. There might need to be one in the South End. And I think we're missing the point and the mark on this. So those are my comments for tonight. So thank you so very much.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Is there anyone else online who wishes to participate in public forum? If so, please use the raise hand function. All right. Seeing no one and no one else here in person, we'll close public forum at 5:08 PM and we'll turn to our consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
That's a move.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second? Second by Councilor Hughes here. Is there any discussion on that motion? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We now turn to our deliberative agenda. Item 4.1 is the authorization to accept grant funds for the operation of the Elmwood and Shelter Community Housing Opportunity Grant Program, SFY 2026. And Sarah, are you here to present?
I am.
Great, very much.
So what we have here tonight is pretty straightforward. It's the same funding that we have continued to receive since opening the Elmwood Community Shelter. This year, our application was fully funded. And we are using remainder 77,000 funds that were already committed in December. So after this fiscal year, we will have no more ARPA funds and then need to seek 100% funding from the HOP grant or the Housing Opportunity Program grant. Over. Happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, and thank you for being here. Are there any counselors with questions or feedback on this item? Councilor Carpenter.
I'm just curious, so we started this program and we used city money and we used ARPA. Now we're moving to HOP money. And I'm curious, does it have to go to the city? We have to be the grantee?
We are actually exploring that a little bit right now. If that's a certain, there's a couple of pieces to that conversation. The first is obviously with our operating partner, Champlain Housing Trust. As if the city was not the administrator of these funds, then they would need to agree to take that piece on. The other piece that we're looking into is what we need to hold on to, because the city still owns the parking lot and we own all of the structures on the property. So there's kind of figuring out what our role in that still may be.
Is there a timeline on the HOP money? I know it's an annual appropriation, but no immediate end date.
Not that I can see.
I haven't heard that one. Okay.
It's a pretty, I mean, I think it's how every shelter across the state is funded and emergency shelter. So this year, again, it's administered by the Office of Economic Opportunity. And they again prioritize emergency shelter applications over and reviewed those first over other applications. So I feel pretty good about the security of this funding.
Do you know if the state increased that pot at all?
There was level funding this year for HOP, and then there was additional, I think, $3 million that was available for new shelter capacity projects. Sure.
Thanks, Councilor. Councilor Barlow.
Yes, thank you. I had a question about the operational costs. Have they increased since we opened the shelter, or have they stayed fairly flat?
We certainly factor in cost of living increases, but other than that, we haven't seen substantial increase in the operating budget.
Okay, thank you. And the other thing I had a question about was when we first opened this, it was seen to be a temporary measure. I think even maybe a 3-year timeline. I didn't go back and check, but I thought that was sort of what we were talking about, and it's become something that we continue to need. I guess I'm wondering, and I think when that location was originally selected, we were talking about when we phase out of this shelter, that we would maybe build permanently affordable housing in that location. Is that still the plan?
Absolutely. So I know that when a couple of factors went into the 3-year timeline, you're correct in saying that. The first is that at the time, there could be conditions put on the permit that limited the amount of time that it could be issued for. That's no longer the case due to changes of zoning amendments at the state level. The second is that I don't think that we ever foresaw we would be in the situation we were in. I know that when we opened the Elmwood shelter in February of 23, there were approximately 40 to 60 people outside. And now we have upwards of, I would guess probably upwards of 300 at this point. So the waiting list remains very long. There's just under 200 people on the waiting list for the Elmwood shelter right now. In terms of long-term, our goal is still definitely to transition the property to permanent support housing actually, and we have been I think we received a grant. Samantha Dunn secured that just before she left the city last year, and have been working with an architect and Champlain Housing Trust to actually envision like how many units could be on the site, or with parking be like kind of some of these things, and so that is still very much a goal that we have moving forward.
Okay, well, thank you. Those are my questions.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Councilor Newbeezer, anyone else have any comments on this item? Okay. Well, if there's a proposed motion posted on item 4.1 on Civic Clerk, welcome. Motion from you. Councilor Carpenter.
I would have moved to approve and recommend the city council accept the FY 2026 grant funds in the amount of $1,326,555 for the state of Vermont Housing and Opportunities Program for the operations of the Elmwood shelter community, and authorize the chief of staff to execute all contracts and documents necessary to accept the funding from July 1, 2025 through June 30, 2026, including retroactive approval for the period of July 1 through July 14, subject to the final review and approval of the city attorney's office.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second to the motion? Second by Councilor Barlow. Any further discussion? We'll go to a vote then. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Sarah. Item 4.2 is authorization to submit the 2025 Burlington 1-year action plan. Do we have anyone here from CEDO this item? Or Brad, are you doing?
Yeah, I can fill in.
Folks can't see you online, Brad, so if you could just.
Scoot over?
You can just scoot over, if you can just read or state your name and your title.
Okay.
There you are. Right.
Everybody. I'm Brad Kudenberger. I'm the Director of Finance. And CEDO has to submit a 1-year action plan every year to HUD. This is related to the CDBG grant. So this is on a calendar year basis. So we are submitting a 2025 Burlington 1-year action plan, which does require approval through the legislative bodies in order to be considered valid. If you have further questions about details within the action plan or specifics related to the project, I'd be happy to take those down and get back to you.
Don't ask you.
Alright. Good segue, Brad. Does anyone have any questions or feedback on this item?
I don't know if you can answer this or maybe Jessica, do we have any sense about where this stands in federal government, not the action plan, but the CDBG fund?
I can speak generally. to, departments are doing a good job of notifying my office if they're getting any new sorts of forms or requirements that they're supposed to sign or fill out for our review before they do. So I am not aware of any specific to, actually, that's not true. I would have to double check, but someone from CEDO did reach out to me with some forms that were standard that they had signed in years past, and one new form that I've just had the Attorney General's office review for us, and I think we'll probably end up signing and submitting. But I just want to make sure. I just want to understand if we are exposing ourselves to any risk in doing so before I advise them. So broadly speaking, departments are being very cognizant of when they're, particularly when they're getting new forms that they are being asked to sign by the federal government in association with grants that they have gotten in years past.
Councilor Barlow, Councilor Hughes, there you have it. So. All right. With no further questions or comments, a motion would be in order. Councilor Hughes.
To approve, recommend that the city council approve the attached resolution relating to the authorization to submit the 2025 Burlington one-year action plan and direct the mayor or her designee to sign the accompanying documents for submittal.
Thank you. For a second to that motion. Second by Councilor Barlow. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. We're now on to item 4.3, authorization of improvement bonds for FY26. Brad, is this yours?
Yeah, I'm happy to take this one as well. So as former counselor Sharon Busher indicated in public forum, what you have before you are the resolutions authorizing the sale and collection of monies related to the annual bonding. So that is again $2 million each for the Burlington School District, as well as the city as part of the annual bond, and $3 million for the BED annual bonding. This is, doesn't really have any changes from year to year. It is just a resolution authorizing us to forward in that process. I do believe that the school, or we had to get confirmation from them to that they are intending indeed for bonding of this $2 million, and will be able to approve that through their board process in August, which is works well with the timeline when we work with our financial advisors to prepare for on sale. Pretty straightforward, but I'm happy to answer any questions or try to damage.
You. Our city council want to be recognized on this item, Councilor Carpenter.
Just two quick comment and a question. This is the same bond that we're thinking perhaps of raising to $10 million in.
Yeah, we did have a discussion about that in previous iterations, or while we were preparing in the fall for the upcoming, the bond vote. In this past March, the thought was to leave it level for now. And from the city's side, we went for a $20 million general obligation bond, which passed. And that also included the water resources related bonds as well on that vote. But we decided there is a point in time after fiscal year 27, which, because of the amortization of the school, there is a kind of drop off in our debt. We did have discussions about waiting until that time to entertain further questions about raising the annual bonding. The annual bonding would allow for all of our facilities and deferred maintenance needs to be kept current on a regular basis without additional efforts to secure local approved funding. And Illinois was kind of where we found it, and as in terms of the timeline, it could be apt timing around fiscal year 27 to consider that as if we valued everything correctly, property taxpayers would see a negligible increase, and the city facilities would see the benefit of that.
It's just, my comment just relative to Councilor Busher was I'd always presumed we would need a separate resolution, just because that's what my experience was.
Yeah.
Are we doing this with the bond bank or?
This. No, I'll have to get back to you on that, but it's like we will, but I don't know for sure.
Thanks.
Does anyone else want to be recognized on this, Council Barlow?
Yeah, thank you. And I just to follow up on Councilor Carpenter said, I am supportive of trying to get on a sustainable, bonding regimen where we're not episodically going out to voters and asking them for tens of millions of dollars to cure deferred maintenance issues that we have. But so I look forward to those discussions. But with respect to this, is this something that we should have had? Do we intend to have during the budget? And this was it?
It was just oversight at that time, and this is our solution to rectify that oversight.
Okay, got it.
But
moving forward, we would have, in addition to the budget resolution, we'd have this additional resolution to authorize that non-voter approved annual bonding.
Right, that's our intent for moving forward.
Okay.
So. All right, thanks, Councilor Barlow. If there's no other comments, then I would welcome a motion on this.
Move and recommend that the city council approve the resolution providing authorization for improvement bonds for FY 26.
Thank you, Councilor Hughes, or second by Councilor Barlow. Any other comments on this item? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. So we're now on to item 4.4, security services for City Hall. I'm here to be able to present them.
Hello all, I'm Tim Williams. I'm the city CQ manager. I work at the resources office and the rebranded permanent land administration. It'll take a while to remember that one. There. This item before you tonight is to seek approval to exercise a 1-year renewal for the current contract option with Champlain for security services here at City Hall, and to increase the allowed operating amount not to exceed $200,000 for this FY 26. If there's any questions, comments, concerns, in or out, ready to press those.
Councilor Hughes.
Yeah, two. One is what's the previous amount for increasing
The previous amount was 120, and just through use and utilization of the space after regular hours for such of this is what creates that additional amount. So for context, last year it was a rate of $50 per contracted hour. This year going to a rate of $52.50 per contracted hour, meaning for a regular day about $472, and that's a Saturday through Sunday expense that the city is operating with.
So there's an increased pay I get, but the additional hours are being covered is.
Yeah, by having more use and utilization of our space for city meetings.
My second question was, just, I wonder if there's been any sort of internal review of this particular vendor. I don't know exactly what metrics you look at, but, how successful they've been or sort of how.
So there is constant review and a ongoing conversations happening via email between members here at City Hall and myself who act as the contact person directly with our vendor, Truck Thunder, and that's using those services here at City Hall. So if there's ever any concern, staff address those for me and or to the contract vendor directly and try to talk to them. And Charlotte Thunder has been more than amenable to immediate and direct action and directing issues or perceived issues.
Any further questions? Carlo?
Thank you. So has it always been our policy that if the building's open, that we have security? Or is it our current policy?
I can't speak to history prior to me, but I can say under the previous contract as well as current, anytime the building is open for public meetings, we have contracted security services.
And so this 80,000 increase this year is just because of, well, it's an increase in the per hour rate that
Yeah.
Chocolate Thunder's getting, but also it's in response to more meetings.
More use and utilization of the space that we did not plan for in the previous fiscal year. And I think some of that is also being addressed by the creation of the Department of Finance and Administration, where there's a little more conversations happening about use and utilization of the space.
And I just as a follow-up, there are other buildings in the city where we have public meetings. I think like 645 Pine, for instance, the library. Is there always security at those?
I can't speak to those spaces. I just manage the contract here for contracted services at City Hall. I am aware that at the library, they have did some internal security services, which I believe are also present when after hour meetings have occurred in that space.
Thank you.
Councilor Carpenter, do you have anything?
I don't know if Tim can answer it, and I don't need an answer now, but I would be curious how much in total the city pays for security services, so maybe I'll pass that through to Brad and Catherine at some point.
Good.
Yeah. Great, thanks.
So a little general, but the idea that because we've had, like, why not? I guess is my question when we talk about security, and maybe it's just hiring capacity there, or is that the case? And then if so, are these like stopgap measures to still cover needs? That's a long-term vision that we move that direction there.
I have not been part or party to any conversation of that nature, but I do believe that something like that could be an appropriate use of resources if those resources are available.
Just one question I have, perhaps it would be a follow-up question. I don't anticipate perhaps have the answer tonight, but a couple of the bigger issues that we continue to hear from folks downtown are one, bathroom access during hours when folks are down here. And then two is safe bike storage. And those are two things that we have both of down here in the lower lobby area at City Hall. And I'm curious, even when City Hall is not in use for a public meeting, whether or not there's ever been any consideration put into nonetheless placing security here in the lower lobby and making it clear to folks, the public, that this is an open space where if families need to use a restroom or if someone wants to safely store their bike before the building shuts down, that's something that may be available here. And I'd be, if you don't have an answer now, I'd be curious. Following up on that, I know that there would be obviously some additional cost associated with that, but just curious if it's something that folks have thought of at any time.
I believe that's a conversation that I have brought up, in the past, though I can't speak to any. And just review this year's contract and the previous, the last 2 years. Some of that conversation has occurred, as identifying the space as potential need for like an information center, that more populated area that kind of operates in that same way versus something like a security services space.
Okay, well, I'll look forward to following up. Okay. Anything else from folks? All right, a motion would be in order then. Councilor Barlow,
I would move to approve and recommend that the city council exercise the city's first 1 year renewal option under its service agreement with Chocolate Thunder for city halls, security services for an amount not to exceed $200,000.
thank you. Is there a second? A second by Councilor Hughes. Any further discussion on the item? We'll go to a vote then. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thanks, Tim. Our next item is item 4.5, reclassification. It's a reclassification item. And on this, we have Scott Barker.
Hello, thanks for the time. This one is pretty straightforward as well, as some of the others. With my innovation technology group absorbing the IT services and the IT needs at BPD, we have one person who is over as a help desk technician who needs to be moved into our job description here because the classifications of job descriptions were slightly different. It'll result in an additional $4,000 a year for Troy, as we are market value. He was on. What's the payroll? Payroll is basically Willis, not the Wilson. He was on the Willis pay schedule over there, and we're the help desk professionals here are market finders. So that's all this is. It's almost literally the exact same job description. He actually ended up moving some of his responsibilities also into the two people that are here, where they'll be taking on the service for some of the systems over there. He'll be doing some of the systems over here as well, so there'll be cross training and things like that. But pretty straightforward other than that. I'm happy to answer any questions or take any comments any of you may have.
You, Scott. Any questions for folks?
I have one question. One of the things that I know that other members of the board were interested in sort of stopping doing is this notion of retroactive pay that we sometimes pay to reclassifications. I know some of that's related to collective bargaining agreements and other reasons, but I'm wondering, is there any retroactive
No.
pay that's associated with this?
No retroactive pay on this one. Troy has been performing extra responsibilities at the police department for some of the networking and server side issues, because there isn't somebody over there doing that. We've already taken all of that on my group, and so he's just going to be slotted just directly into the system. So there's no need for back pay, retroactive pay, and the stipend that he's getting for that extra work will be going away as well. So.
Yep. Any further questions, comments? So, Barlow, if you have it up, I get a motion. On the 7th.
I move to approve and recommend that the city council reclassify Troy Hughes from the help desk technician position at the Burlington Police Department to the technology support specialist in innovation, technology at the city of Burlington.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Is there a second? Second. Councilor Carpenter. Any further comments on this item?
Perfectly fine with this, but I've done this before and I'll address this to Jessica, let her pass it on. Seems to me these kind of approvals, if they're already in the budget, shouldn't have to come to us. And somebody else greater than I try to figure that out, because it just as you said, it's quite straightforward.
Yeah. Just one final comment, because I've talked a couple times about my concerns with reclasses, but it sounds like this is sort of the closest equivalent. Your scale is different. But those first market grade, so I am gonna support this. But as always, I think we need budget. It's hard to just have seemingly a lot of just across the city, a lot of sort of nickel and dime builds up, over time. It feels like. So I want to get more clear on like criteria among the board and maybe among the city as to when we see this as necessary. And those who so anyway, with that on.
Just a comment that I don't disagree, and we can pass this on to the mayor, which is to say, I think reclasses have to be part of the budget process. And when you present a budget, you should price your personnel accordingly so that we don't have to do reclasses. So to me, what I'm sort of surprised about is that they're coming back to us for a $4,000, in this case, $4,000 adjustment, and it should have been budgeted. I hope it was budgeted.
It was budgeted. I think it's just the formality of moving him from one job. It's really less of a job reclass and more of this was his job description at the police department.
Yeah, and I understand that. So I think another conversation.
Yeah.
We should. Because I think it's confusing. I'm not saying this to you, Scott.
Yeah, no.
It's confusing to the public.
Any further folks? All right. I will just note and Councilor Carpenter, I think I'm generally in agreement with you that when there's sort of budget neutral shifts of one position to another area, that I would be open to our exploring the extent to which all of these items need to come back here. I do just want to flag that in other respects, though, right, that when it comes to eliminating a position, which I know we're not doing here, or creating a new position, which I also know we're not doing here, that I do think that those items consistently need to come before the council. And I think some questions were raised around that as we went through the budget cycle, and were the administration was proposing the elimination of certain roles and the standing up of new positions, and some of those actions being taken and put into effect before the council had actually voted on the elimination of a role. So while I generally agree with your statements there, Councilor Carpenter, about some of these more budget neutral shifts, I do just want to take that opportunity to put out there that the bigger picture elimination, creation of new roles, I think needs to continue to come before the council. That's not the issue here, Scott. So okay. With that, can we go to a vote? Well, sorry, there's a motion that was made by, right? Okay, so we'll go to a vote. A motion made by Councilor Barlow. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
This now turns us to item 4.6, impact fee request for the library. This looks like we have Mary Dago.
Hello, I have to be honest, I'm a little sheepish and embarrassed because I wish I would have thought of this sooner when I was with you last time. But it kind of came to me a little bit later. I think all the talk about impact fees got me really thinking, and I was able to look back, and I had good discussions with city attorney's office and the folks at clerk treasurers, and it turned out that we can use impact fees for this. So I apologize that I didn't think about it sooner. It's been a huge project. It's been going very, very well. It's been quite complicated with all the different funding pieces, but by using $200,000 in impact fees that we have helps to offset what the Friends have to put forward. So when I saw you last, I was asking for the Friends to grant the city $825,000 by using these impact fees that will reduce that grant amount. So that's really it in a nutshell, but I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Don't be sheepish, first of all. We're always glad to see you, Mary.
I was very frustrated with myself that
Oh.
I like a better order of operations in my life, and that's not working out, but I'm here today and
Any comments or questions from the board? Councilor Barlow.
And also I echo Council Congress. Sheepish for that you're here. But I do have a question about, I started thinking about, about the impact fees generally. We have categories of impact fees, library is one of them that we're not going to be collecting anymore. And according to the impact fee presentation we received in June, we collected like $400,000 in library related impact fees from 2014 through 2024. And so if you're have you been using impact fees for other projects? And does this exhaust the library impact fee bucket, if you will? If it does,
almost, yeah.
and if it doesn't, are those still available to the library, even though we're sort of we're into a new impact fee process?
My understanding is I won't lose any, kind of grandfathered in, but this does exhaust them pretty much. I think it leaves with about $13,000. Over the years, we've used them for painting projects, we've used them for carpeting, furniture, so a variety of things, some self-checkouts. So yeah, I mean, I think definitely the city's stance on the impact fees is changing, and we understand that, and you know, I think all of us that have buildings here and, you know, that our departments have, you know, we're definitely gonna keep working with the city on how to maintain them. It was kind of great to hear about that, the capital bonds that are gonna happen so that we have a more sustainable way of maintenance. And just a fun fact, is going really well, the project. We've had some windows that have come out in one piece, that will be going to New Hampshire to get done. And, but we have had some windows that have come out and really fallen apart. So it's a much needed project, and it's just been interesting to get through. But hopefully we'll be done by late fall, early winter.
Excellent, thank you.
Any further comments, questions from folks? I'm very glad that you thought of this. I think that it's exactly, you know, what the impact fees from my perspective historically have been for the library. I want to just echo a comment that we heard in public forum and what was touched on just briefly there by Councilor Barlow. You know, I think throughout our consideration of increased impact fees, I've sort of consistently been skeptic about various aspects of it, including the extent to which we're really heading in the right direction with the consolidation that we've selected here. So I know that we're now heading in a direction where these impact fees, whereas there's some grandfather, won't be continuing to grow moving forward. But I do hope that the council, as we you know, hopefully collect more of these impact fees as we engage in further development, think carefully about whether or not we should reconsider the decision that we made here. And I know that we have, you know, there was an argument made with respect to why we headed in the consolidation route, but I'm also familiar with surrounding communities that are still going to be collecting fees for other uses, and we certainly don't want our library to fall behind other communities as a result of that. So just a flag for, I think this provides a perfect example of why collecting impact fees for something like the library may be valuable if permissible, and just hope that we reconsider that as we you know, take a look back at the impact fees a year or two, in the coming year or two. All right. Is there a motion on this item?
I'll move to approve and recommend that the city council authorize the use of $200,000 from impact fees in support of the F. Fletcher Free Library Preservation Project at 235 College Street.
Is there a second? Councilor Beazer, any further comments, questions on this? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you, Mary.
very much.
So we are now on to item.
There's actually two motions, right?
Oh, sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You have some?
I missed that. So I'll make the second motion.
Yeah, you should.
I move to approve and recommend that the city council authorize the chief administrative officer to take all such further actions, including by taking any necessary steps to ensure the creation of the project budget reflecting the use of the impact fees, and to execute such further instruments approved as to form by the city attorney as may be necessary or convenient to effectuate the transactions contemplated hereby.
Thank you, Council Barlow, seconded by Councilor Newbeezer. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That carries unanimously. All right, thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Okay, moving to item 4.7 now, water resources, water personnel reorganization. So we have Director Spencer here, I see we have Director Moyer here, see Tony Berry online as well. Is that the full crew?
Yes.
Okay. Take it away.
Who's Director Megan Moore?
Hi all, thanks for letting me join remotely. I've got some kid care issues. Certainly I just wanted to address that I did listen in on your comments regarding sort of the bigger topic of how we handle these personnel actions and how we handle reclassifications. Very much look forward to engaging the council and HR in those conversations about how we do things differently and more systematically. That being said, we are bringing forward a reclassification of our senior drinking water plant mechanic. The impetus for it being, I guess, multifold. The position is vacant, so it's always a good opportunity to make sure that we review positions and update them as necessary. I did, point to the fact that we made a very similar reclassification on the wastewater side when we went through a larger wastewater reorganization. And with a large organization, I'm not always able to do everything all at the same time. But the reclassification that's being sought here is for very similar reasons as we pursued with the senior wastewater plant mechanic. And again, specifically, this isn't just taking the same job description and asking to have the person paid more. We did substantially enhance and add duties to this position to make sure that we are getting the level of leadership out of this position. It isn't AFSCME, but we actually view it as a great opportunity for AFSCME members to take on a larger role, potentially as a step towards management, but largely just to make sure that our facilities are running even better. And with that, I would love to take any questions.
Thank you, Division Director Moyer. Is there any questions or feedback from members of the board? If there are none, then motion would be in order. Or we can just sit around.
I would move to approve and recommend that the city council approve the reclassification of the senior water plant mechanic, a regular full-time non-exempt AFSCME grade 18 position, to senior water plant mechanic, a regular full-time non-exempt AFSCME grade 19 position, and to approve and recommend that the city council authorize the chief administrative officer to approve budget neutral amendments for the FY26 water budgets to move budgeted amounts from salaries and wages total compensation contingency lines or 60-19-400-000.5000_910 to the appropriate personnel lines as needed to implement the above actions.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. It's a two-part motion as listed on Civic Clerk. Is there a second to that motion? Councilor Newbeezer, any further discussion on the item?
Just one last question back there. If it is budget neutral, then has this been budgeted for?
Yes, it's when I, in the budgeting process, for a multitude of reasons that I can explain at any point. Usually when there's something that hasn't been approved yet by you all, I put it in the contingency line, and then upon approval, I move it into the larger salary line. It has more of an impact when I'm actually adding or removing positions, but it's sort of been my mode so that I can know what I definitely have to budget, and then something that is going to require additional approval.
Sweet, thank you very much.
Anything else from councilors? Go to a vote then. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Again. We move to item 4.8 now, a budget amendment authorization for the Champlain Parkway project initial construction contract, and I'm joined by arguments. What's your title these days? I thought so. Okay. Thanks for being here, Corey. Do you want to present on this item?
Yep. So this is a budget neutral action. We're here today to get approval from the Board of Finance for the clerk treasurer's office or the DFA to perform necessary transaction movements in cleaning up the project budget. There had been a budget amendment request in FY24 and in advance of approval of the FY25 budget that when enacted, there had been some back of the house entry issues that need to be worked out. And so when going through cleaning up, because the initial construction contract's almost finished, and we're trying to clean up those finances, and as part of it, we need to do some cleanup on the accounting side with New World. Because of our policies, it wasn't quite clear. This is generally an administrative action in cleaning up those things. We're not adding any budget, but we're transferring expenses from one pot to another, meaning from what's grant eligible versus what's being reimbursed for third party. We have agreements with utility relocation. So it's something that the city's getting reimbursed, but we just need to move those reimbursable amounts from one fund to another. And so this cleanup action is going to take a little bit of work between myself and the CT office or DFA to really fine tune what those are going to look like. And so at this point, we don't have a formal budget to be approved. It's going to be neutral, but we're just coming in advance to get the approval to transact these, to make these corrections on the economic side. And so because of the dollar amounts, it wasn't quite clear with the policy whether or not we needed to come forward, but we chose to do so in advance just to ensure that we were proceeding appropriately. And so again, not changing the budget at this point in time, and it's going to be neutral to cities' overall approvals today.
Great. Any questions or comments on this item?
Just to make sure I'm wrapping my head around it, like simply put, we're cleaning up budget versus actuals and doing a show versus show.
Correct.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else from councilors? All right. I have a couple unrelated points questions. Not every day that we have the Champlain Parkway on the agenda, so I'm just going to use the opportunity to just mention a couple other items. I appreciate very much your looking into the possibility of southbound traffic. I think those of us in the south end see that it's been paved, and this, or at least the first layer of pavement has been put down. It's looking very good. So, and I think we've heard a lot of positive feedback on it. It looks like in the memo that's been posted this evening that it may not be viable to just open to southbound traffic due to cost considerations. I know that the council had previously put restrictions in place in terms of when it could open based on traffic signal usage towards the northern end of the project for a certain period of time. I also think that, you know, we have found that a lot of the construction happening in the city right now has, I think, created more traffic congestion problems than perhaps any of us, at least those of us who are not experts, anticipated. And so I do wonder whether or not at some point, whether just southbound or whether northbound and southbound. It's worth the council reconsidering the restrictions that we've put in place previously in terms of when the opening time can be. I'm anticipating a community that's going to see a connector that is ready to work and is ready to be open, but is sitting there for 3 months while we're working things through. And I'm anticipating that may result in some frustration. Balancing that against very good reasons as to why we put those restrictions in place to begin with. So I would like for us to continue to have that discussion. Another question I have is, as I'm sure you've seen, unfortunately and really unacceptably from my perspective, a number of these beautiful new light fixtures that have been put up along the new connector have already been tagged with white spray paint. My hope and assumption is that we'll be able to clean that up before we open it. But also an abandoned connector space there for some time resulted in sort of quite a bit of graffiti being put up on some of the redstone there that is along the right side as you come down. And you know, that this is going to be a gateway to Burlington for a number of folks, and I don't know if you have a plan for it right now, but my hope would be that perhaps we may be able to include in the project budget some sort of cleanup and beautification to the area as folks are coming into Burlington. Really support are looking into how the monies that we have available may be redirected towards that cost, which hopefully would be a break the budget kind of thing to do some graffiti cleanup and so on. But I'm just mindful of the fact of that this is going to be the entrance point for a whole lot of folks coming into this. All right.
As it relates to your first item, we are working with Councilor Barlow about the TUC agenda for this coming month, very likely including that agenda item about the connection southbound, whether or not that can be accommodated.
Right.
I can say that there's been conversations about that with the contractor, trying to find feasibility. Okay.
If possible, and again, I think it to Councilor Barlow to set the agenda, but I think it may be helpful as well to understand that if that doesn't happen, what does the timeline actually look like here in terms of when both lanes are going to be open to traffic?
Yeah.
When are the traffic signals going to be in place at the northern end of the project? And is there going to be this overlap period where, you know, truly we could open up both northbound, southbound levels, but for the fact that we had put some delays in place? And if so, is that the full 3 months? Is it more like a couple of weeks? Like how long is that delay overlap going to be?
Understood.
Okay, great. Councilor Carpenter.
Can I ask one more minor thing? Not letting there, but making this mistake periodically. Is there any chance you could move the sign on the final block of Pine Street closer to Home Avenue? Having this bit all the time. There's some lovely neighbor has a.
Painted sign.
Yes.
Yeah.
We can look at signage. I mean, technically, it's not a dead end or a no outlet because it does loop back around.
Yeah, but you have a sign, but it's hidden by a tree. You can't see it, so you get onto Pine Street and.
I noticed that sign is somewhat obscured, so
Yes.
we will take a look at that and see if we can bring some signage closer to the intersection.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. And I know we're at 6:01 right now. We have one other deliberative item before we get up to the council meeting, but just one other question that your department has been very good about responding to the number of neighbors in the south end that have raised concerns around the additional traffic that has been moved to the one-lane bridge on Queen City Park Road. I know that the question that had been asked is whether or not an alternating temporary traffic light could be put in there. My understanding is that you did a study and the volumes at this point in time don't support putting in a temporary alternating light. I will tell you though, to Councilor Carpenter's point, this is what made me think about it. The signage that's there right now is very confusing to drivers going across the one-lane bridge. On one side of the bridge, it says yield to oncoming traffic, right? But I think what drivers don't know is that that sign is only on one side of the bridge, right? So it's only one side of the bridge that's supposed to yield to oncoming traffic. The other side of the bridge is not necessarily supposed to do that. And so I think it leads to a great deal of confusion. Again, I know that we're hopefully reaching the end here, and I don't know that we need to expend really significant resources in addressing that. But there are some serious safety concerns of South End neighbors about the confusing aspect of that signage. And if there's any way to address that in a relatively small lift kind of way, I think that would be greatly appreciated by South End neighbors. So, sorry, off topic, but I don't know when we're gonna talk about the Champlain Parkway again, so. Okay, is there a motion on this item? I know you are, but now it's all teed up, so.
Um, Motion here. I would move to approve and recommend that the city council authorize the chief administrative officer or their designee to execute a neutral Champlain Parkway project budget amendment to modify and correct project revenues. And further approve and authorize the chief administrative officer or their designee to execute necessary transfers in furtherance of the neutral project budget adjustment.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Second by Councilor Carpenter. Any further discussion? Seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That is unanimous. Thank you. We have one last item on our deliberative agenda, which is item 4.9, FY26 vehicle purchase recommendation. And aside, I'm joined by Perry. Thank you. Thanks for having us. Yep. Oh, and sorry, Dave
Our
Manners.
fleet manager,
Yep.
for Ashley Parker's on or not, but.
She's available at.
Okay. So the memo you received in the packet outlines the vehicle purchases and sales that we are going to do for FY26. It involves 17 vehicles or equipment. 7 of those are going to be replaced with the general obligation bond. Special revenue and revenue departments that are having vehicles replaced this fiscal year will use monies out of their own budget. Vehicle list was reviewed by BED for any additional EV recommendations. Based on that list at the time, there was no additional recommendations. But based on comments and guidance that we received from the Transportation, Energy and Utilities Committee, with a motion to recommend to Board of Finance and Council, they asked that we go back and do some due diligence just to make sure we covered all vehicles that could have EV options, including ambulances, which we did. So originally we were supposed to replace the Parks Ranger Chevy Bolt with a hybrid Ford Maverick. We are now going to replace that one with a Ford Lightning, which is an electric vehicle. The Chevy Bolt is going to be purchased by Parking Services to replace one of their vehicles. So we added an additional EV and subtracted a hybrid. We looked into the ambulance option of an EV. Attachment D, it's a memo from Steve Curtin to Dave Hammond. Reached out to the vendors that we procure our emergency vehicles from. They do have EV platforms, but they are not suitable for EMS applications at this time. So there was an error in the cost sheet because they had a hybrid option listed in the recommendation, and it should have been fossil fuel because we also looked at the hybrid option as well, but it did not meet the needs of the department as far as space and capacity. So we're recommending the fossil fuel option on those. We are also asked to do a comparison, which is attachment D as well. It lists all the vehicles that are being replaced with the recommendation and the explanation of our recommendations as to why we are going with those vehicles. Yeah, that pretty much sums up the replacement list purchase. Right. Yeah. Happy to answer any questions.
But yeah, Councilor Beasley.
I guess you can tell me about this here, the police cruisers, for example, Ford Explorers, But it's saying their replacement rate, if I'm reading this correctly, is 5 years. It just seems like a very quick replacement rate.
They are, I don't wanna say highly abused, but they are rotated shift through shift. They go from one operator to the next. And we also have two that were in need of replacement right now. One was totaled, I believe Dave was totaled.
Two of them been totaled.
Two of them have been totaled and not replaced yet.
Yes, due to the high use, they do have a shorter lifespan that limits our ability to fund them because we can't use bond funds to pay for an asset that only has a 5-year lifespan. This is typical for municipal police units.
And my second question was the word lightning of the EVs. It just seemed like a low cost. I was surprised.
Yeah,
Is that-
initially when they came out, they were higher, they seem to be dropping down.
But those are like newly purchased.
Yes.
Versus, yeah, used, right? Yeah, I appreciate, sorry, I really appreciate folks breaking down the reasoning so well in terms of electrification and sort of the status of what's available, what's not available. It's helpful.
Start adding that to their annual memo.
Yeah, and I would just say too, and I don't know the details, but of how you do this, because I haven't dove into it, but as much as we can, start to be thinking about, I think the police crews in particular were saying that I'm assuming like the charging infrastructure, that there, that's right?
Correct. The last round of chargers we put in there pretty much used up any electrical options they had left, so they would need, you know, the transformer installed separate just to power the chargers, even for a regular level 2 charger.
Thank you, yeah, I just want to throw out there that supportive of us trying to figure out how we get that done. Sooner than later, I guess. Maybe the plan for that, which I assume is very expensive, or an expense at least, but I think a necessary one.
Councilor Burrow, I think we'll try to get upstairs.
Yep, well, I'll make a comment.
Yep, great.
So I just want to thank you for doing the extra diligence that came out to you and Dave and the rest of the fleet team for doing that. It's helpful information, and just going forward, I think we'll maybe have that analysis about fossil fuel versus for future purchases as well. It's really helpful, but thank you for doing that extra work. And then I would, in the interest of time, I would move the 2-part motion as recommended on civic clerk.
Yes, that is in order. Councilor Barlow. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second it, but I have one question. What is ICE?
Internal combustion engine.
Okay.
Okay. Anything further, folks? So a motion made by Councilor Barlow, seconded by Councilor Carpenter. Anything further? All right, seeing none, we'll go to a vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? That passes unanimously. Thank you again for being here. Yeah, so seeing, that's me. So seeing no other business before the Board of Finance, objection, we will adjourn the Board of Finance meeting at 6:11 p.m. And you have control of the.
Yeah, I can.
Well,